Good evening. Welcome once again to our Shiurim in the Kuntres that the Rebbe gave us B'Yodei HaKadosha for the purpose that we should learn them, know them, review them, and V'Amaiso Ika to bring it back down into action. Like all the Shiurim, they're all L'Schus L'Ilui Nishmas Miriam Bas Rebbe Ephraim Ze'ev should have Yeridas and Neshama Lamata Beguf Bebias Mashiach Tzidkenu B'Karev Mamash. Amen. Since we are now so close to Yud Aleph Nisan, the Rebbe's 121st Yom Haledes, it's a very, very appropriate time to learn a Maamer that tells you what's in Asi. Some Chassidim ask a question, where do you find in Torah Hilchis Rebbe? You find halachas for everything. Such an important role as what a Rebbe does for Chassidim, there should be a place where it says Hilchis Rebbe. What's his job? What are the details? And they answer, those Chassidim answer, yes, the pasuk in Parshas Tetzaveh. Because all the information that it says in Parshas Tetzaveh about bringing olive oil for lighting the menorah, etc., all of this is said in Parshas Maamer. So why is it repeated? Why is it said here and then repeated there? So Rashi tells us. Rashi says, here is not the tzivui. The actual tzivui is later. Just Hashem is telling Moshe that sometime in the future, you're going to be Tetzaveh as Bnei Yisrael, V'yichoi Elecha, etc., etc., etc. They were just saying later in the Moed, you're going to give the command. So what's now? A Sipur Devarim. Like just telling you a preview of what's going to happen later. Chassidus doesn't accept that as the only answer. Chassidus says that these two psukim actually comprise Hilchos Rebbe. What's the point? What's the tafkid? What's the job of a Rebbe? And what's the connection between a Rebbe and Chassidim? And what does he accomplish with them? So last week we started, and we explained that Rebbe is a Roye Yisrael. He's a shepherd. He's supposed to, and this is what he does, he gives the Yidden chizuk in their emunah. He brings the emunah that they have by nature. Every Yid is a ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim. Like the Eibshter said to Moshe Rabbeinu. That Moshe Rabbeinu said, when Hashem was trying to send him to take the Yidna Mitzrayim, V'hein lo ya'aminu li. They're not going to believe me. Says the Eibshter, they are ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim. Like it says, V'ya'amein ha'am. The people believed him. That means they're ma'aminim. And they're b'nei ma'aminim. Because on Avraham Avinu it says that that Avraham Avinu v'hamin b'Hashem in Parshas Lech Lecha, it says v'hamin b'Hashem. He believed in Hashem, believed in Hashem's words. So we are ma'aminim v'nei ma'aminim. So what does the Rebbe have to do for us? He has to help us feel the emunah b'pnimius. It could be that the emunah is there only b'chitzonius. It's there, but I'm not internalizing it. I just know about it, but I'm not living off of that. I'm not unpacking the package and getting the juice, the real emunah. It's not affecting me in my Sebepayil. And that's what a Rebbe does. A Rebbe doesn't create the emunah, he's mefarnes the emunah. He nourishes it. He makes that emunah that we have should become the pnimius. And that's what we're learning in Perek Gimel. Levi says, Maktim ba Maamer, Shemoshe Rabbeinu Nikra, Raya Mehemna, the Friedeke Rebbe in his Maamer of the Kibbutz Yehudim, we explains Ve'ata Tetzaveh, this very same Maamer. So in order to explain what's the tafkid of a Rebbe, what does Moshe Rabbeinu of each day do, which is like first Moshe Rabbeinu. So first thing is that Friedrich Rebbe brings the Lashon HaZohar, that Moshe Rabbeinu is called Raya Mehemna, a shepherd of Emunah, which has two pirushim. He himself is a Raya Ne'eman. He's a faithful shepherd. He will never let go of the Yidden. Will always take care of us faithfully. He's a dedicated shepherd. Number two, he shepherds us with emunah. He feeds us. And when we say feeding, it means it brings up a pneumius. Let's look inside. The Shnei Pirushim Bazem. One Pirush is Shuraya Ne'eman Shal Yisrael. He's a faithful shepherd of the Yidden, which means Moshe Rabbeinu is the one who shepherded us and provided us for all of our needs with Mesidas Nefesh Mamash. Everything that we need, Moshe Rabbeinu took care of it. Moshe Rabbeinu made sure that we had everything we need, Gashmias and Ruchnias. When Moshe Rabbeinu cared about the Yidden by the Egel to save them from being put to death, Moshe was such a dedicated Roya, and it says in Medrash, Moshe Hoya Roya. Before Moshe Rabbeinu was given the job to lead the Yidden, the Eibishter tested him with sheep. Gave him an aptitude test. When you test someone to see to what he's shaykh. And he saw how he took such good, loving care of this little sheep that ran away. Hashem says, you are fit to lead my sheep. Noye Katson Yosef. Moshe Rabbeinu is able to lead the Jewish people, Hashem's flock. So that's the first thing, Raya Ne'eman Shal Yisrael. A second pirush that the Friedrich Rebbe brings, Bisha Hu Zonu Mefanis Es Yisrael Be'inyan Emunah. What does that mean? Raya, that is Raya de Emunah. What does it mean that he shepherds Emunah? Why does he have to be Mechazik Emunah? Don't we have it? We're Maminim B'nei Maminim. Says the Friedrich Rebbe, that's what the Rebbe is quoting. The Emunah she'eshna b'Yisrael mitzad atzmam, because this Emunah that the Yidden have by themselves, by default, just because they were born as a Yid. She'Yisrael hey maminim b'nei maminim, believers, the sons of believers. Efshe she'tiyah b'v'chinas makif. It's possible that the Emunah would be just on the surface. He's not going to internalize it. It's not going to make him live any different than without the Emunah. In the Maamer, in that Maamer, the Friedrich Rebbe goes into more detail. The Rebbe doesn't bring it here. The Chazal say, Gan va'apum achtarta rachmana karyeh. A Ganev, while he's by his drilling, making his hole, his tunnel to get into someone's house to steal, or chas v'shalom even to kill. What does he say? Oh God, please help me. Rachmana karyeh. He calls to God for help. What does that mean? if you believe that Hashem is Zonu Mefanis Lakoil, He provides everything what they need. So, and that's you. How can you go against Hashem? In other words, if you believe God can help you to get your sustenance for your family, so don't you think Hashem could provide you without your stealing? It just doesn't make sense. It's a contradiction. The pshat is, says the Frierdiker Rebbe, because his problem is that he has his emunah in makif. It's only hovering over him. It's not bepnimius. He's not sensing it. He's not being mizbainin in it. Avraham Avinu had a lot of work he had to do, a lot of effort to become a Maimin B'Hashem, because he had so much opposition. His own family, his parents, his friends, his surroundings, Nimrod, everything. And you know how he succeeded? Because Avraham Avinu did not allow that emunah to stay just makif. He internalized it. He felt it in his heart. And that's why he's ready to go on Mesiras Nefesh. That's what we have to do, internalize it. And that's what the Rebbe does. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu does. The job of Moshe Rabbeinu as a Raya and Mefanis, who is supplying us and feeding us and giving us the union of Emunah, it's not to create it in us. It's rather that our Emunah that we have by default, by birth, it should be B'pnimius. And then I'm going to conduct myself the way Hashem wants. Not going to be stealing and saying, God help me. Why is the God of saying, God help me? Because he believes in God very superficially on the surface, not B'pnimius. And that's the job of Moshe Rabbeinu. What's a shepherd do? A shepherd, the Frierdiker Rebbe explains in that Maamer, it's kedai to look at it because there's a lot more details over there. That just like a shepherd does not just say to the sheep, go, graze, eat. He takes the older sheep to a place where there is grass that's good for the older sheep, for the younger, for the real young ones. He makes sure they have grass that's really soft. He has to give for each one according to their particular needs, because he's a caring shepherd, not just to get the job done, he cares about it. And that's what Vezeu Mashakaza B'Zayar. Now we can go look in the Zayar and we'll see that's exactly the words of the Zayar when he talks about a Roya Ne'eman. Hahi Emuna de Le'ela, that supernal Emuna, that high Emuna, that every gets, because we're Ma'aminim b'nei Ma'aminim, we inherited from Avraham Avinu, Yitizan v'yisparnes, Hashem is saying to Moshe, the Yidden are going to be nourished and going to get it as their parnasa, their livelihood. Minei, from it, al yodcha, through you, al de Moshe, through Moshe. That means through Moshe, they are getting this emunah in a way of like food gets digested internally, the same thing the emunah. The zeh Moshe zan umefanis es emunah, what does that mean? That's what he does. He makes them feel it. In Tanya Peri Gimel, he describes to us what's Chachma, what's Bina, and what's Das. Chachma is the flash of a lightning of the wisdom that comes into your head. You're studying something, and you got a flash. I got it. Bina is understanding that flash, to articulate it, to bring it down in Bina, means just like the Yud is Chachma, Hey is Bina. What's the shape of a Yud? A dot. What's the shape of a Hey? Taking that Yud and spreading it in the width and in the length. That's when a person takes the subject that he understood with Chachma, brings it down into Bina, his Bainanus. So I understand it, I grasp it fully, but still it could be that it has no shaykhs to my actual Maaseh B'Poel. You know why? I didn't bring it down to Das. If I want that it should come down to action, I must bring it to Das. What's Das? Das says Alter Rebbe in Tanya, Vadas he hais kashrus. The connecting yourself to the subject. V'kesher amitz v'chazak. With a very strong tie. What does that mean? To feel it. Not just to know it. You can learn so much information of Torah. You can learn so much information of Chassidus. But it's not your das. You have to bring it down. You have to internalize it. Das brings it in a way you feel like you're seeing, almost like seeing it with your eyes. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu accomplished. That's why they were called the Doir Deya. Deya means they reached the level of das. And that's what the job of a Rebbe is, to give us lo das es Hashem. Not just to know in conceptually and without logically, I understand the Inyan, I understand the Maamer. You have to internalize it. You have to get stuck on it and be misbraining in it. If a person learns 100 Maimarim, Chasidus, and knows them well, he reviewed them and he knows it well. If he's not going to take one line of it, one line of the Maamer, and get lost in it, be misbraining in it, let it carry you away into that subject, that you're totally lost. You're not there. Interesting that there is a Sikha from the Frierdiker Rebbe, almost sure it's a Sikha, he says over there, in the name of Reb Hillel Paritsher. Reb Hillel Paritsher, as we know, was a great Balmanagim and composed many Geschmacke Nigunim that we sing till today. Reb Hillel Paritsher said, he who has a feeling, a chush, a geschmack in Nigun, has a geschmack in Chassidus, has a chush for Chassidus. What's the connection between Nigun and Chassidus? And we do see that Chassidim, when they daven, sometimes when they daven ba'arichos, you hear them humming a tune. It's not they're planning. Today I'm going to hum this and this tune. Tomorrow I'm going to hum a different tune. It's not a planned thing. As zingtzach, the nigun comes out naturally. It comes out like by itself. There's a word from the Rebbe Rashab. It's printed in the back of Shulchan Aruch of the Alter Rebbe. At the end of in Hilchos Shabbos, in the back there is a lot of other stuff, and one of the things is a Sikha from the Rebbe Rashab. I'm almost sure it's the Rebbe Rashab, and he said, we take a look in the Siddur that the Alter Rebbe prepared for us to daven. We see that the Alter Rebbe gave us what we do by the Seudah of Shabbos. And we don't see the Zmiros. There are very holy Zmiros from great Tzaddikim. Zmiros that Tzaddikim have sung. Yet we don't find it in the Alter Rebbe's Nusach. Yeah, you have Azame B'Shvachin, Asadul Sadasa, the Arizal, But you don't find all those zmiras, the traditional zmiras that they sing in all other circles besides Chabad. So the Rebbe Rashab said like this. I think he said in the name of the Rebbe Maharash that the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, the Maharash says, the Tzemach Tzedek hat gesagt that the reason why there aren't zmirais, because he knew that the Yidden will speak Torah, Divrei Torah by the meal. So there's no room for zmirais. The next Rebbe, I think it was the Rebbe Maharash, I didn't see it for a long time, I'm just giving the Teichen, said, because he expected the Chassidim to sing it anyway. Why do I have to put it in the Siddur? It's obvious, you're going to sing it. And the Rebbe Rashab said, both together, that they'll both say Divrei Torah and they'll sing. I might be confused with the names, which Rebbe said which. But then, one of the Rebbeim said like this. The Alter Rebbe gehalten, the Alter Rebbe held, Zmiris darf sich singen. Zmiris has to be said by itself, has to come by itself. In other words, you can't tell a person, say Zmiris. Zmiris darf sich sagen. Eib sie sagt sich, das gesagt. Aber ob das ein Mensch wie gesagt, das nicht gesagt. In other words, Zmiris is something that has to come by itself, almost like a natural flow. If it comes by itself, then that's real Zmiris. But if it's only because I decided to open the Sefer and read it, I'm just saying it, it's missing the punchline, missing the whole thing. And then it ends the Sikha that the Rebbe, I think it was the Rashab, or maybe the Rebbe Maharash, told the Olam by the table, now let's go and sing Zmiris. And they sang Zmiris. What I bring this for is about Tzizaktzach, Tzizingtzach. It's something natural. Chasidus is pnimius. It has to come, the niggin, when a person is mizbainin in davening, and the niggin comes, it's coming naturally, not because he is singing the niggin. His pashut comes out of him like a flow from his neshama. Like it's brought that writing words is the quill of the heart. Singing is the quill of the nefesh. Kulmas halev and kulmas hanefesh. So when a person davens, a person is mizbainin in a particular subject in a Maamer, any subject, any inyan chassidus, and to the way of das, that's when it's going to affect him. That's when chassidus is going to make a change in him. Not saying that otherwise we should not learn chassidus. We have to learn chassidus because it's oil, and oil takes care of everything. It's derech hachoshech. But we learn chassidus in order to use it. If you want to get the maximum benefit of learning chassidus, you spend a few minutes and be mizbainin on one subject of chassidus. That's why it's compared to niggin. What's by niggin? By niggin, you see a person singing the same niggin again and again and again and again. Such a geschmack. Why? Because he's going at gis sechois. He has he's pouring out his soul into the niggin. So you can't even ask him, why are you repeating it? He's not even here. You're talking to the wall. He's lost in the niggin. That's why Chassidus is. You find Chassidim, they used to stand for hours, be mizbainin and Chassidus, and you can't even ask them a question because they're not here. They're right now engulfed in that inyan Chassidus. That's das. Then Chassidus takes an effect. Das is something a Moshe Rabbeinu gives us. And this is what the Rebbe continues now. Maamer. The Friedrich Rebbe continues in his Maamer that the Rebbe is quoting now, that Moshe Rabbeinu in his days did it then, but we have to know that it's happening in every single generation. The fact that Moshe in his days was a Raya Mehemna with both Pirushim, a faithful shepherd and a shepherd of Emunah. A Kavana Bazahi, the Kavana of this is not only to Moshe Rabbeinu in his days, Gam Lispashtusa the Moshe B'chol Dara. In Tikkun Zoyar, I think it's Tikkun Samach Tes, it says, Ispashtusa the Moshe B'chol Dara V'Dara. There is a spashtus, a continuing on of Moshe in every single generation. The pasuk it brings in Tikkun Zayar, it brings a pasuk of Tehillim. It says, Ashrei ha'am shekach aloi. Lucky is the nation shekach aloi, that it's so to them. What does it mean? That Hashem is their God. Hashem Elikam. The Zohar says Shekacha. How do you spell Shekacha? Shin, Kaf, Chaf, Hey. Take the word Shekacha, it adds up to the word Moshe. The Zohar says that's what it means because Moshe is in every generation. Ashrei Am Shekachalei, every folk, every people, every nation. That means the Jewish people in every generation have Moshe Rabbeinu continues on with them. The heads and the leaders of the Yidden in every generation, their job is to be mechazik the Emunah, but the Rebbe emphasizes again, not creating it, but rather she'emuna shalahem tia b'pnimius, that their emuna should be internalized. And as an example for this, the Friedrich Rebbe brings, like Mordechai Tzaddik. Mordechai in his generation was like Moshe in his generation. What did he do in the time of Haman? Who's mechazik the emuna of Yidden? Mordechai said the Mordechai was the spreading forth of Moshe. In his generation, that means the time of Achashverosh, the Maamer Azal, Moshe Mordechai B'Doirei, Moshe B'Doirei. Mordechai in his times was doing the same thing like Moshe in his times. There's actually a medrash. It says over there like this. In Megillah Esther, when it describes you, when it introduces you, Mordechai, it says, Ish Yehudi, Hayav, Shoshana Bira. Who's this Ish Yehudi? Mordechai Tzaddik. He's called Ish because he's just like Moshe Rabbeinu, upon whom it also says, Veha Ish Moshe Anav Ma'od. He was very humble. So the word Ish means that he was like Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's what Mordechai did in his generation. Shegam is made of man the Gezeras Haman. And also in the time of the Gezeras of Haman, Shalim Adat Torah became a mitzvah as Haya Kosher and Mesidus Nefesh. Haman did not want the Yidden to learn Torah. Anyone who learns Torah is getting killed. That's what he said. That's what he did. That's why it says when the whole Gezer was over, it says La Yehudim Moisa Oira V'Simcha B'Sas Mikar. That the Yidden had Oira. What's Oira? Zu Torah. that they were able to start learning publicly again. As long as the Gezerah of Haman was there, it was Mesiris Nefesh to learn Torah. And what do you think that Mordechai did? Hikel, Kehilais, Barabim, he still made rallies. He made Farbrengens. L'chazik es emunasam shal Yisrael ba'avaya v'lamit chazak v'limad ha'Torah v'kiyam ha'mitzvos. To be strong, to strengthen their emunah, that they should all stay strong in their learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. Like it says in Medrash, we all know, Mordechai Tzaddik gathered 22,000 children and learned with them Torah, Hilchas Kmitza. And when Haman came, Mordechai Tzaddik did not. What did the kids say? Mordechai said to the kids, "Run away! He's coming to kill us." And what did the kids say to Mordechai? "We're sticking with you by life or death. We are with you, Mordechai." He didn't know that Haman was actually coming to him to give him a ride on the horse in the royal clothing. But that's what he thought. And he went Mesiris Nefesh. So this is what the Frierdiker Rebbe is bringing in his Maamer, and the Rebbe is quoting it here. Let's make a summary before we finish this parak. The summary is that Moshe Rabbeinu in every generation is Mefanis Emunah, means that he exposes your Emunah to you. He reveals it to you. So you look at Emunah you have. Look how powerful your Emunah is. You can feel it, you can internalize it, you can experience it in a way of das. And that's how he accomplished Mesiris Nefesh by all the Yidden. That we're able to stand strong and not chas v'shalom to give in to the Gezerah of Haman. So that's one subject that the Frierdiker Rebbe brings in the Maamer about the role of a Rebbe in every generation, to be mechazik and megala the emunah that Yidden have. Then the Rebbe says, after that, the Frierdiker Rebbe brings subject number 2, which seems like not to have any connection, but the Rebbe is going to show the connection. What's subject number 2? After the Frierdiker Rebbe explains at length that Moshe and the Moshe of every generation strengthens the emunah that you didn't have, it goes off to subject number 2, to translate the pasuk ve'ata Tetzaveh, which seemingly has no connection to Moshe, to Mordechai or Moshe Rabbeinu being mechazik the emunah. Is a different thing. Levi diuk lashon kasuv. He explains the diuk in the pasuk shemen kasis lamayr, that the Yidden should bring olive oil, pure olive oil to Moshe, and kasis lamayr. And Frierdiker Rebbe asked why he'd say lamayr, the source of light. It should have said v'loy lahayr. If you're bringing the oil, it's in order to light, to give light. It should say the word lahayr. And the Frierdiker Rebbe explains shebizman hagolus shekol echad ve'echad unishbar v'nitkel. During the time of Golus, when every Yid is broken, crushed, kosses, ayidezeh magiyim lamoed ha'etzem shemimenu nimtzaed. Frierdiker Rebbe says, you know why it says lamoed? Because through the kosses that every Yid has in the time of Golus, he's going to reach his own ma'ar. What's the ma'ar of every Yid? His etzem aneshama. That gives off the light, as he's going to explain later. So we have 2 subjects here. Number 1, saying what Moshe Rabbeinu does for every generation. Number 2, about Kosis Lama'ir, that through the Yidden being crushed, that is something that brings a person to Maamer. What's the connection of these two subjects? That's the Rebbe is going to end this chapter with that question, letting you with a question, leaving you with a question. What's the connection? Let's understand the connection. Pedish because Islam the Pedish of course Islam that crushing brings a yid to his ma'ir of his neshama. What's the connection? To what the Maamer brings earlier. Shemoshe Vispashusa, the Moshe b'chol dara, the Moshe and the continuing of Moshe, continuation of him in every generation. What's his job? Zan u'mefarnes esamuna shetia b'pnimiusay. That's his job, to nourish the Yidden that the Emunah should be b'pnimius. So let's just make a summary of what we just learned in this ice, in this sif, this parak. It's a continuing to explain the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maamer, that Moshe is called Raya Mehemna, which means he's a faithful shepherd, and he gives us the faith that we have should be b'pnimius, which is in of das, like I explained, which means feeling godliness, which is translated in mamish into action. Not just makif, but mamish, you can feel it. Also, explain that it's pashtusa the Moshe, a spreading for the Moshe is in every generation. Every generation, the Nasi should be Yisrael, the Moshe of that generation, strengthens the emunah of every year, just like Mordechai Tzaddik did in the time of Haman with Mesiris Nefesh. And then he brings the second subject, Kosis Lamard. Then when Yidden are Kosis crushed in Golus, it brings them to their Ma'ariv. And then the Rebbe asked the question, what's the connection between subject number one, that Moshe strengthens the emunah, and number two, that Kosis is Lama'ir, that Kosis brings to Ma'ir. To be continued in Yirtzeh Hashem after Pesach, I guess, because next week is Baruch Hashem. We're going to be already sitting by the Seder Wednesday night. We're not in your own home, in Yerushalayim HaKodesh, Sheyibana B'Meir B'Yameinu, and we'll have the real Hakel, the major Hakel. And because this is a mini Hakel, we'll give tzedakah. So we have Torah, tzedakah, and tefillah. We want Mashiach now. I take this opportunity to thank everyone for participating, especially the Mishpacha Shmueli should have all the brachas, begashmis, or beruchnias, for everything that they need in the schus of limud atayra barabim. And the Eivish's old mention that everyone should have a kosherin, and even more important, a freilichem Pesach, begashmias, or beruchnias. Seid alle gesund.